Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football late Friday night, and just some massive news for the Texas Tech fans coming out of the transfer portal. Former Stanford edge rusher David Bailey officially committing to Texas Tech. Now, we got to talk about two things. One, let's talk David Bailey, who's really one of my favorite players in all of college football now. Doesn't get the national media attention he deserves because he's playing at Stanford the last couple of years, not winning a ton of football games individually. This kid has emerged as one of the best pure pass rushers in all of college football. There's a reason that there were a lot of programs interested in David Bailey when he entered the transfer portal. You look at Texas Tech, that was one of the things they wanted to fix going into 2025. You go back to 2024, there were a lot of things you liked about Texas Tech. One of the things that they really struggled with was really on the defensive side of the football in general. You wanted to improve that unit, but specifically, the pass rush, creating negative plays. You look at the numbers, Texas Tech was 110th in sack percentage in the 2024 year. Want to know a really quick way to change that metric? You go add one of the best pure pass rushers in the country in David Bailey. Now, they've made some other really intriguing additions that we're going to talk on a little bit later, but this pass rush for Texas Tech was a problem in 2024. They still won 8 football games, significantly better going into 2025. That's where I want to start. I want to start kind of talking about David Bailey, but I want to, kind of have a little bit of an expanded conversation in regards to how dangerous this Texas Tech team can be in 2025. It's very clear, Coach McGuire, this program, they recognized that they have an opportunity to be special in 2025. They return a lot of players they liked from the 2024 roster, said, hey, if we go and push our chips in the middle of the table and go get aggressive in the transfer portal for some difference makers, specifically along the lines of scrimmage, this team can be really dangerous in 2025. That's exactly what they did. You look at this Texas Tech roster, this depth chart, and say that there's not many boxes that are left unchecked going into 2025. And if it all comes together, I think a lot of the national media recognizes that this team can be really good. I'm not sure how many people realize how good this team might be in 2025. So I want to start with David Bailey, kind of move into where this Texas Tech team is going in 2025. Before we get into it, as always, appreciate you guys. Especially for this Texas Tech team, I think it's going to be a really fun 2025 year. At least they've put themselves in a position from a talent standpoint that they can compete with just about anybody in the country. That should excite a lot of Texas Tech fans. You have a bulk of your roster from 2024 that's coming back. You make some really, really important additions in the transfer portal. That's the recipe. They've brought in a lot of transfer portal additions into this program, but what stands out to me from different years with Texas Tech, the quality of player they brought in is just a little bit different going into 2025. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to be talking a lot about this football team for the next couple of months because they're going to be winning a lot of football games, at least the way I see things. Now, without further ado, let's start with David Bailey. Pure pass rusher. That's where you want to start. And you look at the numbers, you look at the production from the first 3 years at Stanford, 111 tackles, 23 TFLs, 14 and a half sacks. Really, really impressive. First 3 years of his college football career. I don't even know if those numbers do it justice. I mean, you start diving into a little bit of the film. If Texas Tech fans need being sold on David Bailey, just turn on that Syracuse film from last year. This kid is special coming off the edge. Not only does he know what he's doing from a technician standpoint, you can tell this kid has a deep toolkit of pass rush moves. His first step and bend around outside tackles is elite. There's just not many tackles that can deal with the juice this kid has coming off the edge. You look at the numbers, 27.5% pass rush win rate. That's the highest you see in the country. He's the highest PFF grade in the pass rush across the country. Now, David Bailey against the run, it's probably not the strong suit of his game, but that's something that throughout his Stanford career, he's gotten better at. When he first came in, he was a really good pass rusher, probably wasn't physical enough to be a force in the run game. Over the last 3 years, he's up to 250 pounds, a little bit stronger at the point of attack, can be a little bit more of a force in the run game. he's really turned into a complete edge defender over the last couple of years. And this is probably what excites me the most. I wasn't a huge fan of how they used David Bailey over the last couple of years at Stanford. They wouldn't put him on the line of scrimmage all that much. They put him in the line of scrimmage a decent amount because he's a really good pass rusher. They had him dropping back in kind of flat or shallow zone coverages a decent amount. To me, this kid's a pure pass rusher. This kid is a clear on the line of scrimmage edge defender, and I think that's how Texas Tech plans on using him. Now, David Bailey has a lot of versatility. He can do some of that, zone coverage drops. You want to get this kid as much involved in the pass rush as you can. And I think that's what Texas Tech's plan is. They've addressed probably the biggest weakness that they had last year, and that was getting after the passer, creating negative plays. You bring in David Bailey. You're bringing Lee Hunter from UCF on the inside, who is a very good pass rusher from the inside of the defensive line. Excuse me. You also bring in Romello Height from Georgia Tech, who was a very good pass rusher for them in the ACC last year. All of a sudden, you're looking at this Texas Tech pass rush and saying it could go from really not good in 2024 to maybe a strong part of their defense in the 2025 year. And let's just start with this. You want to become an elite defense. This starts with your ability to affect the quarterback, especially in the Big 12. Texas Tech has that ability going into 2025. Now, it's not just the pass rush. It's not just David Bailey. You start looking at how this team is, kind of put together. We're talking about a legit, dangerous team in 2025. Let's start with the quarterback play. Baron Morton going into his redshirt senior year, Will Hammond going into his redshirt freshman year. So really good quarterback room. Now, we expect Morton to be the starter, but I loved Will Hammond coming out of high school. Now, you look at Morton, I think the thing that stands out to me is he's gotten better as he's dealt with some injuries, as Texas Tech fans know. When he's healthy, he can absolutely rip that football around the football field, but more importantly, when he's protected. I mean, you look at the numbers when he was given good protection in the 2024 year, 70% completion percentage, only 3 interceptions when he was protected. Some of the problems we've seen from Baron Morton is, too many turnover-worthy plays. That number was cut in half from the 2023 to 2024 season. As he's gained a little bit more experience, he's a gunslinger quarterback. As the Texas Tech fans know, he's gotten a lot better at balancing, I want to make big-time throws and make big-time plays for my offense, but I also want to keep the ball out of harm's way. You've seen Morton kind of balance that a little bit, walk that line a little bit, which is, kind of comes with experience. Now, another thing you love about this team is the offensive line. Not only is really experienced, you got a lot of redshirt seniors and redshirt juniors on this offensive line, but it's really talented too. And you bring in Howard Sampson from UNC, you bring in Hunter Zambrano from the G5 levels. That's really good bookend tackles. There are a lot of teams that are going through spring practice really not sure what the tackle position is going to look like. I feel like Texas Tech feels good about what they have at the tackle position. The interior of the offensive line is an experienced unit that's played a decent amount of football together over the last couple of years. That's becoming a really important thing to keep an eye on in this landscape of college football. With so many teams going to the transfer portal, that continuity on the offensive line, the experience on the offensive line is often something teams lose. Texas Tech has that. They have the quarterback play. I think they have the offensive line play. I look at the pass catchers. I know they're a huge fan of Reggie Virgil. I'm a huge fan of Corey Eakin. Caleb Douglas played some solid football for Texas Tech last year. They have the weapons on the outside. There's some buzz around Micah Hudson maybe coming back to Texas Tech as well. Here's the kicker that I don't think anybody's talking about. Taj Bush moving on. He was a really good running back for a really long time for Texas Tech. Quentin Joyner, not enough people recognize how good I think of a football player Quentin Joyner can be. Go back to last year in that USC offense, Quentin Joyner, the numbers are so impressive. This is a guy that 7.3 yards per carry last year for USC, 4.5 yards per carry after contact. He is 6'1", he's 205 pounds, runs an 11-second 100-meter dash coming out of high school. He's got the size and physicality, but he also has that second level juice that maybe Taj Brooks didn't have as much of. I'm going to say something that maybe is irresponsible to say in early April, but I kind of feel it. Taj Brooks was really good. I think Quentin Joyner might be a better pure ball carrier than Taj Brooks going into 2025. So you're talking about a potential upgrade at the running back position from something that was already really good about Texas Tech in 2024. Ask the USC fans, because I talked with the USC fans a lot in the winter months about Quentin Joyner. We were all really fired up about what Quentin Joyner could have been for USC in the 2025 year. Now he's at Texas Tech behind an offensive line that I think is going to be pretty dang good. We know they're going to be able to throw the football. We know that offensive line is what it needs to be. Now you have a running back that can be a difference maker too. I mean, Quentin Joyner only had 64 carries last year, had 22 missed tackles forced. That's an incredible number. Then you go to the defensive side of the football. Look, Texas Tech, they ain't had a problem scoring points, and they won't have a problem scoring points in the 2025 year. Is the defense going to be what it needs to be for this team to be consistent? This team's a really good team in 2024, but got into some, shootout kind of games that is like whoever had the ball last was probably going to win. If you want to be a Big 12 championship team, if you want to be a college football playoff team, you probably want to control games a little bit more than Texas Tech was able to do. To me, it starts with the front seven because you completely revamp the defensive line. Romello Height, Lee Hunter, and David Bailey are legitimate difference makers that are coming into this program. Then you look at the linebacker room. Ben Roberts, Jacob Rodriguez played some phenomenal football for Texas Tech last year. They're both returning. And then you look at the secondary, another unit that you probably want to see take a step. Huge fan of Cole Wisniewski coming from North Dakota State. This guy that's played a lot of football at a very high level at the FCS ranks, knows how to force turnovers, can come up into the box and tackle. One of the more versatile back seven defenders that you'll find. Can play that cover one, single high safety, can also come up into the box and fill the run game. Bryce Pollock, a guy that a lot of programs wanted in the transfer portal. I'm a really big fan of Dante Balfour coming from Charlotte. And that's 6'2", big body that can put his hands on opposing wide receivers. You kind of got some different bodies on the defense too. Bigger, stronger, faster is probably the word I would use to describe Texas Tech on defense. And that's important because they've probably lacked some difference makers on this side of the football in the past. I look at that defense and say, from a height, weight, speed standpoint, you are in a much better spot. This team checks. So where we'll kind of wind this out is where's the hole? Where are the question marks you have about Texas Tech? Where are the glaring weaknesses? Because I would argue you don't have that. And then when you factor in a quarterback that I think is good, that's going to be a redshirt senior, that if healthy can really play at a high level, behind an offensive line that I think is going to keep him clean most of the time, with a running back that I think can be a difference maker, with the pass catchers around him, this team does not have any boxes that are left unchecked. And if it comes together, this team we know it's going to be good. Now the question is, how good can it be? It can be a very good football team in 2025. We will pause it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Going to be a really fun team to talk about coming up in the fall. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.